This is the Brewers POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Milwaukee Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
After winners of once upon a time 8 straight games, your Milwaukee Brewers have now lost 3 out of their last 4 games, including a 7-1 loss tonight to the Atlanta Braves. Did the Milwaukee Brewers fool you and I? We'll get into it this evening. Those offensive issues continue to roll on, and an opportunity that was in front of your Milwaukee Brewers is also beginning to slip away. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Locked On Brewers POSTCAST. My name is Brandon Stein. Welcome in to the program. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Stein, as well as all my work over at WTMJ.com, covering all of your Wisconsin sports. As always, thank you to each and every one of you for always tuning in and making Locked On Brewers part of your day each and every day. Lots of stuff to get into, as we always do this evening. Let's get into the scoring summary, once again brought to you by wonderful Pistachios and Gametime. It began in the 3rd inning in this game, a William Contreras single where Joey Ortiz scored after hitting a double earlier in that inning. That would give the Brewers an early 1-0 lead in that 3rd inning, and that is where it would end for your Milwaukee Brewers as far as scoring goes. Ronald Acuña Jr. would homer to center in the 5th. That would even things up at 1 apiece. Then Matt Olson, right off of DL Hall, would come in and see the first pitch he would get from DL Hall, and he would turn it in to a 2-run home run. That would give the Braves a 3-1 lead in this game. Eli White in the 8th inning would also homer a 2-run shot. That would give the Braves a 5-1 lead. And then Marcell Ozuna in the top of the 9th inning would single to center. That would score 2 more runs, and that would give the Braves way more than they would need this evening with a 7-1 win over your Milwaukee Brewers. Again, I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. The Brewers now losers of 3 of their last 4 games, all of them at home, beginning, if you go all the way back to Friday when they began that 3-game series with the San Diego Padres at American Family Field. Now 35-32 on the season. Your thoughts, your reaction, your frustrations, your anger, all welcomed on the program. We'll get to all of it as the Brewers lose once again at American Family Field to the Braves in really, really ugly fashion, 7-1. And I had mentioned it yesterday on the program where the Milwaukee Brewers fell 1-0 to the Padres, that it wasn't great series, right? Over the last now 4 games since they started that series with the Padres on Friday, the Brewers are averaging 1.25 runs per game over the last 4, all of which being, again, like I mentioned, at American Family Field. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not going to get the job done in any form or fashion, or however you want to describe it. It's just not going to get it done at the plate for this Milwaukee Brewers team. Did the Brewers actually fool us? Because now I'm beginning to wonder. I know I had gotten behind this microphone and told you this is the Brewers team we've been waiting on. And certainly it looked like it, right? Creating runs, generating runs, pitching deep into games, crucial bullpen outings, Abner Uribe looking fantastic, Trevor McGill getting a couple saves. I know he blew one on Saturday, but the Brewers still won. Timely hitting, in situational baseball, small ball. And here we are, where the Brewers had won 9 out of their last 10 coming home to American Family Field. And I know we have all talked about this, and this is going to sound like, again, I'm putting on, the record player once again and hitting the play button. But this was the most pivotal point so far in the Brewers' schedule as far as the season goes because of what the Cubs continue to do, which, by the way, they lost tonight, and so did the Milwaukee Brewers, of course, 7-1 to the Braves. So once again, you're unable to gain any ground. When the Brewers went on that 8-game winning streak, which included 9 out of 10 wins, they didn't gain any ground on the Cubs, and they still continue to not be able to gain any ground on the Cubs. And I know for a post-game show, you don't want to continue hearing me talk about the National League Central or the NL wild card, where the Brewers are still 2.5 games out of that race. But at some point, like Rhys Hoskins has said, at some point, you either got it or you don't. You got to get going with it one way or another. And this Brewers team has been unable to do anything as far as the standings go. They look good during that 8-game win streak. But now those same issues before the win streak are coming back to life for your Milwaukee Brewers. We talked about the pitiful performances at the plate over the weekend. Today was absolutely probably, I know they didn't score any runs in 2 of those 3 games, but today was, merely the same. I mean, 1 run, 5 hits, Chris Sale. I hate to do it on a Brewers postgame show, but we got to hand out the player of the game in a 7-1 loss. Newsflash, it's not a Milwaukee Brewer.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Spinning the clock back on your Milwaukee Brewers, 11 strikeouts. I mean, only allowed 5 hits, had that 1 earned run, just 103 pitches, just absolutely dominated your Milwaukee Brewers. On the flip side, Aaron Savale got into some trouble early in that game. I put it out on my Twitter at Brandon_Snide. I thought he did a fantastic job of getting out of that jam early in the game. I believe it was the 3rd inning. He only goes 4 2/3 innings pitched this evening. He only gives up the 2 earned runs, but it's that 4 2/3 that we have been talking about. And I know they brought in DL Hall, who's kind of been your long reliever since he was reinstated from the injured list. You just got to get more out of your starting pitching than 4 2/3, even if that means DL Hall and Grant Anderson, who threw 1 1/3 this evening for 42 pitches. At one point in one inning, I believe it was the top of the 9th, he had like 35, 36 pitches for him to get out of that jam that he created for himself, which allowed a few runs, as I mentioned, with the Ozuna single up the middle. All around bad game for your Milwaukee Brewers, a bad week. We go back to Thursday, the last time the Brewers looked like themselves, where they beat the Wednesday. It was before the off day. They were off Thursday last week. We're going on almost a week now where this Brewers team has kind of looked sleepy at the plate and kind of, I don't even want to say sleepy because that means that they have the tendency to wake up. I don't know if they're going to have that moment. We knew at one point this was the turning point in the season for your Milwaukee Brewers. They rattled off 8 in a row and you're like, okay, like this is it. Let's go. We're not gaining any ground and maybe then in the division. However, this kind of looks like the team that we thought we were going to have. And so far now, after that had happened, you have an off day on Thursday, you score 4 runs over the weekend and you score 1 run against, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this Braves team playing some of the worst baseball in all of Major League Baseball. Prior to tonight, they had lost 7 in a row. I mean, they just have not been really good. Their bullpen hasn't been good, but it doesn't matter when you're playing the Milwaukee Brewers because any pitching, whether you're good or bad, you're gonna prove to dominate this Brewers offense, and that's what we've seen tonight. 5 hits, 1 earned run for your Milwaukee Brewers on a 7-1 loss, now 35-32 on the season. Your reaction, your thoughts, and a really ugly performance from your Milwaukee Brewers coming up right after this. The program today brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. They are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and those better for you unsaturated fats to help you feeling fuller for longer. Plus, I love the no shells variety, the perfect grab and go snack for those busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, in between practices, between baseball games, track meetings, all the good stuff. They are always my go-to. Get snacking and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Very easy, guys. Get snacking, get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. The program today also brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided last minute, I'm sure you have, that it's time to go grab a ball game with friends and family? Maybe it's a game day and suddenly you realize you want to be in the stands. Hopefully you weren't at the ball game tonight or maybe over the weekend, but maybe in the future as the Brewers homestand continues. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute ticket deals without the stress. With money you save on tickets, you can splurge on that food, those drinks, the merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. And Gametime makes it all possible. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Gametime has last-minute tickets and zone deals for big savings. Seat views right in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you'll be sitting. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Once again, that is gametime.com. An ugly performance from your Milwaukee Brewers in a 7-1 loss to the Atlanta Braves. Your reaction, your thoughts being poured in over on YouTube, and we are going to get to all of it. We begin with Jordan. The Brewers teased us with that 8-game win streak. Is this the reality for this team? I think until otherwise it is, and I won't be fooled, Jordan, again, until I see consistency within this offense. When people have talked about, well, you need to get a bat on the left side of the infield, and Joey Ortiz isn't very good, and Caleb Durbin isn't very good. Newsflash, outside of Yelich going on a 12-game hit streak, nobody is really good. I mean, yes, you could point to Caleb Durbin and Joey Ortiz, who are, at the bottom of your order consistently and not hitting very well. However, nobody is at this current rate. Harley on YouTube, this team is who they thought they were, mediocre and putrid offensively. This team is going all capital letters nowhere. It's hard to disagree with you. I mean, I wish I could sit here and argue with you, Harley, although I greatly appreciate you tuning into the Locked On Brewers postcast. You're not wrong. And we had talked about building consistency, certainly at the plate, of course, but in the way that you win games. And like we mentioned when the Brewers beat the Phillies back a few weeks ago, which feels like a lifetime ago now, where it was a 17-7 win and everything seemed to be hitting the barrel on that game. And we're like, hey, it's great. This isn't going to be the consistent, obviously, offense that we see. However, you have to establish some form of consistency. And it's not like this Brewers team is trying to figure out their identity, guys. We know, the Brewers know what their identity is. It hadn't changed. I know you lost Willie Adames in the offseason, which, by the way, go look at his numbers, although I love Willie. I mean, the Brewers made the right decision by moving on. But at the end of the day, we know what this team is. We know who they are. We know how they're supposed to score runs. We know how they're supposed to win games. And it consistently hasn't been the case. When they rattled off 8 in a row, we felt good. I came on this program, said the Brewers are back. And certainly it felt like it. Not only because you're winning games, but it's the manner in which you are winning those games. And on the front end, it looked like, okay, Jose Quintana's making his way back. Aaron Savali is getting back into his groove. Before the freak accident with Brandon Woodruff down in Nashville with the liner off his elbow, you were like, okay, I could see the pieces of the puzzle being put to place here for your Milwaukee Brewers. Bottom of the order, we talked about Joey Ortiz and Caleb Durbin. Bottom of the order at times in that 8-game winning streak was kind of the catalyst, for those runs, especially some of those timely hittings. Outside of Saturday night, that's evaporated for your Milwaukee Brewers. I thought today was a good, I had mentioned it Sunday that maybe it's time to kind of split up Caleb Durbin and Joey Ortiz at the bottom of the order. Again, it's not going to solve itself overnight, but you have to try something different, and that's what the Brewers did today. But again, when you lose 7-1, it doesn't matter what you do. Nobody's going to care because you lost the game. You've lost 3 out of your last 4. Again, the Braves weren't very good. I lost 7 straight prior to tonight. 3 of the 5 runs this evening coming with 2 outs in the inning. The Matt Olson home run, 2-run home run that separated a tie ball game from 1-1 to 3-1 was the first pitch he's seen off of DL Hall that he knocked out of the park at, 380 feet. Excuse me, I shorted him a little bit. 417 feet, right in dead center to the batter's eye. Guys that were stepping up during those good moments a week ago are just not stepping up on both ends, pitching and offensively. But I don't want to put too much blame on pitching because really it's not been pitching. Tonight you can look at it, I suppose, but you're not going to win games when you score 1 run. You're not going to win games when you don't score any runs. The Brewers scored 4 runs over the weekend, guys. They've averaged 1.25 runs over the beginning of this homestand, the season-long homestand. And when I say opportunity slipping away, you rattled off 9 out of your last 10 wins prior to coming back home in a season-long homestand staring at you in the face. The Padres haven't been playing good. All 3 of those games against the Padres were winnable bleeping games. You should have won them. Your pitching was fantastic. Tonight, yes, it wasn't great. I mean, the game really didn't get opened up until that Matt Olson home run. Even at that point, it was 3-1, and then they didn't score again until the 8th inning. And at that point, once it was 5-1, you and I know, if you've watched 1 or 2 innings of Brewers baseball, you knew that was probably going to be it. Certainly for an offense that has struggled consistently throughout the year. All your reactions still being poured in over on YouTube. We go to our everydayer. Nick, I hope Matt A. and Mark A. are seeing what is happening to this team when you don't spend money and or cut payroll. You don't bring in someone who can spark a fire and drive in anything. He says, okay, sorry, I blew up there. But it's warranted. And I understand the frustration. And I agree with the frustration. Because like I've said before, I'm not getting on here telling you guys how to feel or why you shouldn't feel this way or that way. The core is here for this Brewers team. I firmly believe that. Now you could look at William Contreras not having a great year or the finger injury. And a lot of a lot of fans want him to just go have the surgery and get better and maybe see him later on down the road. I still believe wholeheartedly in Jackson Chourio as a very vital piece to this team's future. Christian Yelich, as we had seen, 12-game hit streak, turning it on, leading the team in home runs. You felt like he was starting to kind of find himself. Bryce Terrain, not as of late, but over the course of most of this season, has been your best hitter. Sal Frelick. Some of you have called him the heartbeat of the team. I won't even disagree with that because I think you're right. So it's there, right? The frustration within the fans, I think, is warranted. I'm not going to sit here and push it back. I'm not one of those people in the media that's going to tell you that's not how you win games. I understand it's not how the Brewers operate. I understand that they are successful in what they do, developing pitching, right? Acquiring those pieces late in the offseason like they did with Jose Quintana. But I feel like personally the core for this team was here. An opportunity to kind of strike was here. We had kind of flamed out, the last handful of postseason appearances, most notably in October against the New York Mets, who eventually went on to keep advancing in the NLCS. But the core for this Milwaukee Brewers team is here. But again, when you don't upgrade anything and essentially downgrade, and that's what they did when they lost Willy Adames, who led your team in home runs and RBIs and was a heartbeat in that locker room. And I understand he's not performing in San Francisco, but when he leaves, you have to elevate your game to new heights. And we're seeing that backfire. We're seeing Joey Ortiz not perform anywhere near where he needs to be. I don't know if Caleb Durbin's your everyday third baseman. Probably not. Rhys Hoskins isn't performing at that level that we needed him to perform to. Jackson Chourio has struggled more times than I think you and I thought he would going into this season. We mentioned the injury that William Contreras has sustained, that he just hasn't looked good. Ben on YouTube, this team just plays with no enthusiasm. Looks like just another day going to work again. Looks like they are swinging with their eyes closed. I had mentioned this. Thanks for the comment, Ben, because I agree. I had mentioned this before the 8-game win streak. Just nothing felt like they were having fun. And I know it's like you look at it and you're like, okay, well, they're professionals and they're getting paid lots of money. They're still human, guys. Having fun is part of the game. They're playing a game. And it just didn't look like they were having any fun, even when they were doing something good. It was fun during that 8-game win streak, and now now they're falling back into the same slump offensively and body language that we'd seen prior to that 8-game win streak. And I've mentioned it before. 3 out of 4, they have now lost at American Family Field to begin the season-long homestand. It was an opportunity that they are now allowing themselves to slip away from. You were 5 games over 500. Things were kind of just turning the other corner for you. Yeah, you weren't gaining much ground on the Cubs, and you had a great opportunity to gain ground in the wild card. And I know it's June 9th, and we don't want to look at NL Central and wild card standings after every single game, but newsflash, guys, at this rate, you're just going to have to. And we talked about the way that the schedule is panned out for this Brewers team. This is the position they put themselves in. When you start the season the way that they did, and you have the inconsistencies that they've had, you put yourself in the position to keep looking at the records each and every night, although it's only June 9th. Everydayer Drum over on YouTube. I'm tired of trying to get to our pitching staff to carry us to consistent wins. Have the Brewers learned anything from the past few years? It goes back. Appreciate it, Drum. You're right. Goes back to the comment that we were making about the core is there. You had an opportunity to kind of, you lost Willie Adames, and I know the Brewers, aren't going to go out and spend big money, but you can't expect different outcomes if you downgrade at certain positions. And it took a while for the Brewers to figure out third base, and still are trying to figure it out. Obviously, with Caleb Durbin having, his struggle, but the offense just hasn't been there for a number of players. CJ on Twitter, back to having an atrocious offense, but let's blame the pitching. I'm not blaming the pitching overall. I just mentioned how great they were all weekend. The Brewers should have won all 3 of those games. Those were very winnable games. Tonight, the pitching just wasn't great. You're going to have those games, but let's not act like the Brewers offense is blameless. I'm not acting like that at all. I would blame the Brewers offense more than anybody, quite frankly. And even, for a pitching staff that started the year, at one point, Freddie Peralta was your healthiest pitcher, your only healthy pitcher, and you were still able to kind of keep your head above water. That speaks more volumes, to the pitching staff in general and Chris Hook in that dugout than I think it does anything. And the Brewers, have let their pitching down. So I appreciate the comment, CJ. I'm not allowing the offense to slip here. The pitching tonight just wasn't great. We had talked about the starters have to go longer, and eventually DL Hall was gonna have a moment where he wasn't able to get out of. And tonight we saw that. It was kind of the turning point of tonight's game, and Grant Anderson as well. But both of those guys have been tremendous, especially over the last couple of weeks, where the Brewers, where we thought they kind of turned their season around, but have now allowed it to kind of slip back into where we were, the discussions you and I were having prior to that 8-game win streak, as the Brewers fall tonight to the Atlanta Braves 7-1, now 35-32 on the season. We'll see if they can get it back right tomorrow. The Braves back in town at American Family Field, and you and I will be right here, hopefully talking about a Milwaukee Brewers win. Quinn Priester on the mound for your Milwaukee Brewers. My thanks to each and every one of you for always tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Brewers part of your day. Remember, you can follow the show wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, all of those great apps, as well as right here over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Brewers, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we'll talk about the Brewers hopefully bouncing back tomorrow at American Family Field in Game 2 against your Atlanta Braves. My name is Brandon Snide. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Snide, and we'll talk to you soon. As always, win, lose, or draw. Tough one tonight for your Brewers, but no matter what, it's always go Brewers. Have a good one, everyone.